Hey folks, today let's start with a little introduction. Beast Wars Transformers is one of my all-time favorite animated series. I remember like it was yesterday the first time I saw it on Italian TV. I was 9 years old and accidentally stumbled upon the second episode, and it soon became one of my biggest obsessions of the time. I loved it as a child and rewatched it in my 20s with great nostalgia. First, once again with the Italian adaptation, which had a great voice cast but took a lot of liberties with the characters' names, much of the dialogue, and even retitled the show very differently. Well, our opening theme was fantastic, though the lyrics didn't have much sense.
Tra due astronavi avversarie scoppia una battaglia per chi dovrà dominare tutta la galassia. E mentre in furia lo scontro atterrano in un mondo di 4.000 anni fa.
But after a while I watched it again with the original dubbing. Simply phenomenal. In my opinion, it's a truly extraordinary series for its time, for being entirely CGI and for its mix of seriousness, goofy humor, heroism and even tragedy. Now, I do not intend to lecture you on its history, merits and Shakespearean tones. For that you can watch this long video essay by Lord Ravenscraft. I highly recommend it, along with other retrospectives like this 3-part one from Bull Session. Today's main subject is the video game released in 1997 on PS1 and in 1998 on PC, simply called Beast Wars Transformers. A game that as a child I would have loved for sure, but as an adult in his mid-30s, it made him reconsider how I spend my little free time. This game is old and quite problematic, and to get it work properly I had to rely on RetroArch, which I used to emulate Windows 98 using DOSBox Pure as the core. So I installed the game, applied an official patch, and then launched it. I'll tell you right now that this is one of the most frustrating, janky and confusing experiences I ever had. I have no idea how the hell I even finished it. But let's go in order. The game is playable in several languages, including American English and British English. Whatever. And here's the opening, which features heavily compressed excerpts from the animated series, and sadly a different voice cast.
Shields are doing a major fade!
We're going down.
Yes, the planet has energon.
No David Kay as Megatron. I'm so displeased. This entire cast is simply imitating the originals. What a shame. The game features two different campaigns, set during the events of the first season and tries to give an ending to each faction, the Maximals and the Predacons. To start, let's choose the Maximals. These two campaigns consist of a total of 12 missions each, taking place in 4 different environments: desert, urban, polluted and volcanic, each consisting of 3 different maps/missions. When we choose one, we'll be given a briefing that vaguely explains the objectives, and then we'll have to select a character from the 4 initially available. As you can see, each one has different attributes, and for some missions one might be more suitable than others. You'll see. Let's start by choosing Optimus Primal. The game can be considered a classic third-person shooter, where the scope is to fight various types of enemies while searching for buttons to open doors, and collecting different power-ups and recovery items to survive. It's all pretty simple and straightforward, and frankly it even shows some interesting potential and features that mirror the original cartoon, but all these good intentions are undermined by clunky controls and general imbalance. Just like in the original series, the Transformers must switch to their beast mode to overcome the energy exposure, which consumes this purple bar. When it runs out, health begins to deteriorate, and if you look closely, you'll notice that there's an indicator around the bar that indicates the level of radiation in the nearby area. For some missions, it's better to choose someone with high resistance at the expense of health and firepower, such as Dinobot for Maximals and Tarantulas for Predacons. Furthermore, switching to beast form allows to restore about half of the energy and resistance over time. And while this mechanic may seem very annoying due to how fast the resistance goes down at times, I actually found it to be lore accurate, because in the first season, characters often suffer the radiation overload very quickly and had to immediately switch to beast form. Now, just look at these enormous radioactive crystals, and tell me how a Transformer can survive near them for long. I think it's quite logical that he has to transform. Anyway, having to constantly switch forms is not the biggest annoyance in this game. No, there are worse ones. We'll spend most of our time shooting enemies like flying drones and monstrous creatures I've never seen in the series, and to survive we'll never have to stand still. In fact, we'll have to master the strafe movement in order to run in circles around enemies and hit them with the auto-aim, but the auto-aim often doesn't work. Also, by holding down the fire button, we can launch missiles that track the target, but I often forgot about this, because I was more focused on mashing the fire button like a madman to shoot as quickly as possible. When our selected character dies, we lose him for the rest of the campaign, unless we complete a rescue mission, which is accessed after finishing the current level if we find this collectible bonus. Rescue missions are structured like a rail shooter, where we first choose one of the two available flying Transformers, Optimus Primal and Terrorizes for Maximals, and Inverno and Terrorsor for Predacons. During these missions, we'll have to shoot at flying enemies that fire projectiles we'll have to avoid, and also various obstacles, until the final battle against an aerial battleship, which we'll have to hit at specific parts until it's destroyed. Let's say these levels are potentially fun and also offer a nice variation, at least the first two times, because they soon become repetitive, and if we lose the flying Transformer, it's gone forever. Anyway, listen to my advice. If you happen to lose a character, just exit the game and reload your save. It's not worth having to do the special mission just to recover a fallen unit. It's just a waste of time. Besides, the biggest problem is that you can die very easily, and there are no checkpoints, or even a system with limited lives like other arcade games. For example, you can slide into deadly pits extremely easily, because the edges are somehow very slippery. Many deaths are hilariously stupid, and having to restart missions from scratch is a terrible pain. It even made me regret not having played it on PS1 emulator, where I can use save states. Yes, I was desperate. The next big issue is the platforming. Believe me, the platforming sections in this game are simply horrible. The beast form is mandatory to get through most of these tricky jumps, which must always be executed while standing still, as the controls are often unresponsive and are the main cause of stupid deaths. I swear, folks, this was one of the most excruciating gaming experiences I ever had. And to make things worse, the objectives are not always clear, like in the very first Maximals mission, where I had no idea yet to destroy this sort of factory. It just seemed a common structure. Also, navigating the levels is a freaking chore, because there are no clear indications of where to go, and when you press a button to open a distant gate, you have to guess where the heck it's located. And the minimap comes handy for spotting nearby enemies, but for navigation it's practically useless. However, in all this mess, I still liked a few things, like how the common flying enemies circle around us to attack us from behind, or how some bosses mimic the enemy faction member will defeat in the final stage of the environment. I mean, look how cool this big robotic scorpion is. It's themed after Scorpionhawk. Every environment is built around a specific member of the enemy faction, who becomes the boss of the third map, except for the flying units Eraser and Terrorizes, who are placed, we can say, in defense of the final level in the volcano area. In particular, I have to say that the Terrorizes fight before the final Predacon level was incredibly challenging. So, I defeated Megatron, beat in Maximal Campaign, and then threw the game away. Nah, just kidding, I played the Predacon campaign too. I'm a freaking masochist. But I took some precautions. First, I lowered the difficulty to easy, and then activated the auto camera that tracks the locked-on target. How silly of me not to have done this sooner. The Predacon campaign may seem very similar to the Maximal one, but there are some big differences. The enemy drones are different, as well as the layouts of some maps. Some of them are completely original, and others have changes such as buttons placed in different places, or new elements like these two sphinxes. I also liked the addition of this battleship that is a mid-boss. Look, that's very cool. Replaying the game with more experience as the Predacons was funnier, but still one hell of a frustrating run, because all the flaws are still there. Interestingly, each faction has a 6th unlockable character in the first polluted mission, in which the objective is to reach a stasis pod like in the animated series. Predacons can acquire Black Arachnia, which is in line with the original story, but Maximals will get Rat-Trap, who was instead a member of the original team. If the new character had been Tigatron, it would have made more sense. Oh, whatever. At least Rat-Trap has a ton of energy and resistance. So, to complete this game, I spent over 10 hours, because I had to replay almost all missions multiple times due to many deaths. Not to mention all the times I got lost and wandered aimlessly. For many minutes. Now, the game is not exactly a complete disaster, but it's also not a game I'd recommend anyone but fans of the animated series to try. In my opinion, some adjustments like the inclusion of checkpoints and less slippery edges and tricky jumps that cause stupid game overs would have made the overall experience much more enjoyable. And talking of other things, the graphics are kinda decent, though the animations may look very awkward, and the soundtrack, that's very cool, with over 20 original tracks spanning various genres. I admit that I would have appreciated the inclusion of the original voice cast, but perhaps that would have been too much to ask. To finish, Beast Wars Transformers is a kind of missed opportunity. It has some merits and potential, but everything is ruined by poor balance and an excessive difficulty that, frankly, just seems sadistic. As always, a warm thanks to all viewers, and see you in the next entry.